39 past the hour, now to an NBC News exclusive. NBC News has learned the Biden administration is making plans for a possible increase in border crossings ahead of Donald Trump's return to the White House, as more would-be migrants say they're concerned that Trump will shut down the border. That's according to two U.S. officials and exchanges between migrants on WhatsApp groups. Here's what one Venezuelan migrant headed to the United States said about what he fears now that Trump was elected.
Queríamos llegar a los Estados Unidos, ahora que Trump ganó, ahora no sabemos qué hacer. Que sea la voluntad de Dios. Ya que tomamos este rumbo, tenemos que, aunque sea, tocar la puerta para ver si nos la abren. Si no, no sé qué hacer ya, porque salimos de un régimen demasiado estricto y feo. Regresar a Venezuela es como que nos estuvieran dando un tiro a cada uno en la cabeza.
He says he wants to get to the United States. He needs to get to the United States, but doesn't know what to do now that Trump has won. He says returning to Venezuela, he described the horrible regime there is like being shot in the head. With us now, Sabrina Rodriguez, national political reporter for The Washington Post and MSNBC contributor Paola Ramos in Phoenix. Paola, you have focused so much of your recent reporting on Latino voters throughout the United States. You've been kind of telling us about this shift you've been seeing. Why do you think so many are surprised by it?
Look, I think we should be surprised, right? I think it is not surprising that Latinos would want to be sort of inspired or find something in Republicans, but I do think we should be surprised around the idea that so many Latinos found something in Trumpism, right? And I think that is the question that we have to ask ourselves. What does that reveal? Look, the last person that did really well with Latino voters within the Republican Party was someone like George W. Bush. And he did very well, Jose, as you know, because of his pro-immigrant rhetoric, right? Because he really tried to embrace Latinos. And here we are, years later, and someone like Donald Trump that is promising mass deportations, that has told people that he will separate families, that has insulted immigrants, someone like him is poised to break a record with Latino voters. And so I think that's the question, right? What does that reveal about ourselves? What does this idea that now we're sort of shifting towards this more anti-immigrant rhetoric, what does that say? And I think we should be surprised around that. We should study that.
Paola, but, and I think, the George W. Bush, I mean, he got 44% of the Latino vote in his second
That's right.
his election. But this is a president who, while as a Republican, fought for, presented, and was very close to getting comprehensive immigration reform. That was his policy, his stated policy at the time. And Paola, now, as we all know, then President Trump canceled DACA. So I'm just wondering, they're two totally different visions and views.
But maybe the difference is that we've changed as Latino voters. And I think that's what we have to reckon with, right? Like who we are now is vastly different from who we were back then. Back then, 20, 30 years ago, the solidarity revolved around our immigrant story. Right now, so many Latinos feel more American, right? They feel more perhaps seen in Trumpism because perhaps their values have changed, because maybe they feel more white than brown, because maybe they're simply more detached from their immigrant roots. And I think that's the difference, right? The way that we have evolved, assimilated, conformed. And that's kind of the discussions that we have to have about.
Sabrina, and I just want to underline once again your extraordinary reporting, and it's just a point of pride for many of us. But you posted after the election, let's not start with the blaming Latino voters thing again. It's tired. What did you mean by that?
I meant the reality is everyone is trying to make sense of what happened in this election. We've seen, the exit polls come out, and a lot of the narrative, of course, is us talking about Latino voters, which rightfully so. I mean, we are seeing a dramatic shift. Whether that changes by a few points as we get more information in the days to come, there's no question that more Latinos went out to vote for Donald Trump than polling showed in the lead up to the election, than I think many of us who follow Latino voters expected. But I think that it only tells a piece of the story. When we're looking at, Donald Trump's victory, Donald Trump did not just win the presidency because of Latino voters coming out for him. We look at states like Pennsylvania and North Carolina, and yes, Latinos are a growing segment of the population there, but they only make about 5-6% of the electorate. So we need to be having a conversation about the many pieces of the United States electorate that helped deliver the presidency for Donald Trump, instead of just looking at Latino voters as the scapegoat and saying, and only questioning the voters and blaming voters. Really, we need to be having a conversation about why it is that the Democratic Party's message did not resonate with this community that they thought would be reliable for them.
And Paola, I know you spent election night with mixed immigration status families in Arizona. What were they feeling?
They're scared, Jose. They're extremely anxious right now. I mean, just to give you an idea of how personal this is, undocumented immigrants have been in this country for an average of 16 years. And so what this means is that undocumented immigrants are moms, their parents, son abuelos, son tias, and they're part of American families. In a state like Arizona, these kids that you're seeing on your screen right now, they are part of the over 250,000 U.S. citizens just in Arizona that are part of mixed status families. And when I talk to them, as you see, about the possibility of Donald Trump, here's what they told me.
Es algo muy espantoso y me da mucha ansiedad pensar en lo que esto significará por la comunidad inmigrante, siendo hija de papás inmigrantes y indocumentadas. También me da mucha ansiedad.
Ahorita mismo no sé qué sentir. Creo que solo me da mucho miedo, como no solo por mi familia, pero todas las familias como en mi comunidad.
I think there's two stories to be told in Arizona. Yes, there's so much anxiety about the reality of family separation, but here in the state of Arizona, they know resilience, right? This isn't new for them. They have been waiting for this moment and organizing for this moment for decades, since Joe Arpaio, since SB 1070. And so the infrastructure is here. That's what the activists will tell you. And they are ready to fight and to protect families like them.
Sabrina Rodriguez and Paola Ramos, thank you both so very much. Really appreciate it.